Building and Mentor Relationships in the 21st Century, Leveraging Santa Clara's LinkedIn Law Mentor Directory to your benefit. So, we are so lucky today to have two of our very illustrious alums in our presence today. They're very busy, so we're so grateful to Craig Rashkis and Travis Kropelka for giving us their time today. Before we get started and before I introduce our panelists in a little bit more detail, I wanted to just talk to you guys about the Law Mentor Directory on LinkedIn. So first of all, I think most of you probably have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't, I suggest you get one going. And sign on to the Law Career Services group, which is, you can just search and find the Law Career Services page. Once you do that, you can either search for the Law Mentor Directory, or you can go to subgroups, go to more and then subgroups on the Law Career Services page and get signed on that way. The reason that you should join is obvious. It is a fantastic resource for you all, as well as to our alumni, to gain knowledge, to expand their professional network, and to just really network with the wider legal community. So definitely do that. And Craig and Travis are going to talk to you a little bit more about why it's so important to have these relationships in place during law school. So, Craig and Travis. Craig is an alum from the class of 2000, and he's a business and real estate attorney. He is the founding partner at his own firm, Farwell Rashkis, in Los Gatos. A significant part of Craig's experience is in the area of construction law, addressing issues such as contractor licensing, construction bidding and contracts, work stoppages, contractor insurance coverage, and construction defects and deficiencies. In addition to dealing with construction matters, Craig handles a variety of business and real estate matters, such as business entity formation, buy and sell agreements, preparation of contracts, licensing, lease review and negotiations, business successions, and entity wind-up and dissolution. Thank you. Craig also has a practice involving the representation of wineries, breweries, and other businesses involved in production, marketing, and distribution of alcohol, which is a very interesting practice area that he has forged. Craig received his degree from Santa Clara Law and also has a master's degree in dispute resolution from Pepperdine University. So I will get back to you, Craig, in a moment. I'm going to introduce Travis to you all. Travis Kropelka is from the class of 2005 here and is a partner at a San Jose family law firm, Hoover, Bechtel, Hoover, and Kropelka. Mr. Kropelka, Travis, specializes in all aspects of family law matters, such as property division, characterization, allocation, evaluation, reimbursement of claims, spousal support, child support, breaches of fiduciary duty, and a whole number of different areas of family law. You can talk more about it. If anybody has any questions, they can ask him. Also, Travis graduated from here from law school, and he was a book review editor for the Law Review, and he received numerous awards for academics and oral advocacy while a student. So, Craig, I'd like to start with you. Can you start by telling everyone what you wanted to do while you were in law school and kind of the path you took along the way?
Yes, well, I took a very unique path. At least at the time I was in law school, it was extraordinarily unique, and I sense it's probably still a unique path in that I attended law school here for the sole purpose of getting involved in ADR, and I didn't want to practice traditional law, I just wanted to be a mediator.
And that ADR is an alternative dispute resolution.
Yes, yes. And that led me to further education at Pepperdine, and I worked a number of years in just the ADR arena, but ultimately I actually found myself back in traditional law practice, which is where I am today, and trying to forge a career path in alternative dispute resolution is extremely difficult, and developing and utilizing mentor relationships was very critical, actually, for me to get as far as I did in in that field, and it's actually paid me dividends now as just a regular practicing lawyer.
Craig, did you, what initially gave you the interest in mediation and ADR while you were in law school? Because I don't know if a lot of students get exposure to that as, in their first couple years of law school.
Well, I think that just for me, I had thought, prior to going to law school, I thought a lot about what I wanted to do, what I thought I would be best suited for, and amazingly enough, coming up with mediator actually happened. And I did a lot of research and found out that there was a lot of alternative dispute resolution activity, not only in the public sector, but growing in the court system. So it seemed like going to law school was a wise decision, and that's really what led me in that direction initially.
Travis, how about you? What was your thought about what you wanted to do during law school and kind of the path you took during school to get there?
Sure. I came to law school certain that I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. I wanted to, fight against the government and shake my fist at the man, and I know that a lot of my classmates felt the same way, and some of them pursued that to its end. I was fortunate enough to get a job after my first year. I got a job just as they couldn't even really call me a law clerk, but I was up with the firm in Placer County that had the conflicts contract with the public defender. And they gave me the full exposure. I mean, they sent me out with their private detectives and stuff in the field, and I remember traipsing through blackberry bushes looking for a gun. They sent me out to, kind of compare what the police report said of a crime scene to the crime scene, questions, could the officer have seen that from here, etc. They also took me down with me to the jail to do a bunch of interviews, and they took me to court all the time. And it was really in court, which is where I wanted to be, because I wanted to litigate. Then I learned that this was not at all what I had in mind, and I'll just grossly generalize here, but what you do as a criminal defense attorney is try every day to get stupid, guilty people just a little bit less time in jail. Just a little bit. So that really was disillusioning for me, so I came back. So I came back to school knowing really only that I didn't want to work in a big firm. I was married at the time, still am, but we wanted to start a family, sometime after law school, and I just didn't want a big firm. I was debating whether or not I'd hang out my shingle, but in the meantime I was looking for a job. So during my second year of school, about the middle of my second year of law school, I took a job with what was then Hoover and Bechtel, and is now Hoover, Bechtel, Hoover, and Kropelka. So that's 8.5 years or so going back to law school that I've been there. And I'll echo what Craig said about the importance of the mentoring relationships. That's where it began. I didn't have the wherewithal to do what you guys are doing and learn about how to seek a mentor relationship, how to network before I got on the job. I learned that on the job from the fantastic people that were there, most of whom have now moved on to other jobs. And I fell in love with what I do with doing family law there on that job. Absolutely love it. I think it's an underrated, underappreciated area of the law. Offline, I'd be happy to talk more about that, that angle. But hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, no, that's great to have kind of the pitch for what you guys are doing, because these guys are on the mentor directory and are happy to answer questions. So transitioning after law school, Travis, you just mentioned how you didn't have a system in place there wasn't a system in place during law school to give you those introductions to people who are willing, to alumni specifically, who are willing to talk to you about different practice areas. I mean, how did you transition to then realize the importance of that and then even utilize it in your practice as an attorney, as a partner, business development?
Yes, that's a lot of questions.
Sorry.
But it's okay.
Take your time.
So the school's going to stop inviting me back when I say things like this, but law school does not prepare you to practice law at all. Law school does not prepare you to pass the bar exam at all. You can get that from barbering. Law school teaches you how to think like a lawyer, and I guess at some level that helps you learn to pass the bar exam and maybe practice law. But bottom line is you learn how to practice law on the job by practicing law, and that's scary as hell. So early on, and I was fortunate enough. It was very nice to be a law clerk and put in a year and a half where I could do all kinds of work. I could work with clients. I could even make court appearances as a certified student, and yet I had no risk. My ass was not on the line at any point. So that was nice. That's a luxury if you guys can find it. And also it's beneficial to firms, frankly, to size up potential new associates in that route. It's something our firm has done very successfully. So in any event, early on, and this may seem such a simple story, but I hope you guys will understand how much of a baby we can be in the practice of law. I remember getting that first research assignment, as a law clerk, and I had no idea what family law was about. I barely knew how to research anything. I didn't know what was going on. And I went next door in the office to an attorney there, and she was so fantastic. I always credit her for this, Kristen Cox. And I asked her this question, and I was so afraid to even ask a question because I wanted to know everything. And she said, her answer, like she was my mother, she said, "I don't know, but let's look it up together." And that was just such a fantastic mentor's answer. And she was a great mentor. And there's, I'm not as good of a mentor as some of the mentors that I have had. And I'm very candid about that to the people that it's now my responsibility to mentor. And it's something I'm always working on. It's part of why I'm here, frankly, is to try to be better, because those early relationships were so important. You need those people early on, in the first couple of years. You need people who will support you when you fail, I would say, because you're going to fail.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Craig, now when you transitioned kind of after your program, the graduate program at Pepperdine, and when you kind of transitioned back into the practice of traditional law, how did you seek out mentorship, or how did you, when you started, I think you started right back at Bustamante, or?
Well, yeah, I had a period of time where I had a failing mediation practice. So from the business perspective, it just wasn't cutting it. And I had to make some changes. So while that was still active, I started to transition into the, just regular, everyday, traditional practice of law. And I started doing contract work. And that then led to an opportunity to join a firm here in San Jose. And, it's interesting, actually, that Travis would bring up the issue of failure, because everybody experiences it. We've all experienced it in one form or another in our lives, and that won't change. You'll experience it more. But when you have mentor relationships, they do come in pretty handy when you're faced with that moment of failure, or if you see it coming, if you're lucky enough to see it coming before it gets to you, and you can start to take some steps to maybe minimize the impact that it could possibly have on you. In my situation, when I was making that transition, I ended up just reaching out to people that I knew. I grew up here in the local area, so I had the benefit of having some pretty long-lasting relationships, some of which were attorneys in the community that knew me before I went to law school. So that was kind of step number one, was reaching out to those people who already knew me. And then that led to, they would recommend, well, maybe you should contact this person, or one lawyer in particular. I think just really appreciated where I was. I was in a very low point in my career, probably the lowest point. And he saw that, he understood it, and he knew another lawyer that was in his peer group who had gone through something similar, and he connected me with that lawyer, who was absolutely fantastic and kind of got me pumped up again and back out there. And that really was the beginning of making the transition into traditional practice, which pretty much from that point, I'm happy to say I've been on fire.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's great. So, since we kind of had the groundwork for, where the importance of, these relationships and these mentors kind of have in your careers, for the students that are here today, what do you think would be, short of, we know that they're all going to sign on to the Law Mentor Directory, that's the first step, but what do you think they should expect from, an alumni mentor that's already on the directory, in terms of what they can expect to learn from them? I mean, what are some, I guess I should just start out with saying, what do you think that they should ask about? I mean, first, is it gaining information? Is it looking for a job? I mean, ultimately, everyone wants to get a job, so we know that's the bottom line. But is that what you start out asking?
I think you start out trying to form a relationship. And frankly, as an employer and a mentor, I'm a lot less interested. I'm like anybody, I love to talk about myself. and about what I do. I don't want to answer why I can't give you a job right now. You know, that's not a good way to start that conversation. Show interest in me, and I'll love you for it. You know, so, but in all seriousness, I say that to you guys as a tip. I mean, so what you should be trying to learn is not how to get a job, it's how to keep a job, how to work well on that job, and that comes down to the substance. And so, I mean, there can be a million different answers to your question, but I would think that from my standpoint, something that you can only learn from a mentor is what we might call the local rules, the insider tips on practice. Bottom line is, it's a hard reality to face, to learn that every day in court, the law as you read it is not being followed, the local rules as you understand them are not being followed, that you have to know the people, know the players, know the insider tricks to get what you want. Like in any job, you know what happens behind the scenes, and that's stuff that, like I said, you can't read anywhere. It's not written down in black and white. And you're only going to even start to learn that through a mentor. So those are the types of things I would be sitting down with people. I'd just be finding someone who's maybe in a field that you're interested in, see if they'll take you to lunch or happy hour, and just pick their brain about what it's actually like to practice law in that field.
So even just at the very basic level, I mean, Craig, do you think that a student can send a message on LinkedIn to somebody that they're interested, if they're interested in the practice area, we have an alum doing it, they're on the directory, can a student just message them? And, you know, should they have a specific question in mind? Should they invite them to coffee, a drink, lunch?
I think the bottom line answer is yes, and it could be any of those approaches. The way I look at you know, the relatively new mentor directory on LinkedIn is it's a new forum, it's a new avenue to develop mentor relationships, and the great thing about it is it's a forum that is specifically geared towards reaching out and developing those kind of relationships. But the essence of the relationship, or how you should approach it, or what you should look to get out of it, is no different than it's ever been, ever. And it's just like what Travis said. The difference is you just have another tool with which you can develop those relationships. So on LinkedIn, which I have been using a lot this year for business development, it's just a convenient and easy way to send somebody a message or reach out. And the great thing, I think, from a student's perspective is that I remember when I was a student, and even sometimes today as a professional, there's moments where you have some apprehension about approaching somebody in particular, or just approaching anybody. And a forum like the one on LinkedIn is great because it's not real time. You've got the space, you got your computer, and then it goes out and it's on their computer. And it's a little bit more comfortable, I think, to initiate that. And my sense is that you'll find more often than not that you'll get a response back. No matter what, if you ask a very specific question, or you just say, I'm interested in family law, I'm wondering if you might have some time over the next few weeks to chat with me about it, I'm sure you're going to get a response back.
Do you prefer a message on LinkedIn if it's somebody that you don't know as well, as opposed to a direct email?
Great question. Personally, I don't think that it matters to me. Although, again, thinking about the forum on LinkedIn, if it comes from that forum on LinkedIn, before I even read the substance of the message, I know I've got the context. Whereas the email is just one of the many emails that I could be getting from anybody, and sometimes I can be a little slow in the draw. It might take me a minute to connect all the dots. So again, I think the LinkedIn forum is just it's an opportunity that makes it that much easier to reach out and develop those relationships.
And I could argue that either way, because I certainly could see the benefit from time to time, as long as you're clear. There's that unsolicited reaching out that you're not going to get a good response on. And but at the same time, if I get a direct email because someone has actually found me in particular, as opposed to the group as a whole, then by all means, email me and say, hey, got your name and contact info from the mentoring group on LinkedIn, had a specific question about this. That shows me the go-getterness, that I would like to see. And I would echo what Craig said, though, it's that comfort level. The bottom line is, many of us, some people are fantastic at working a room. I'm not, and I would say most people probably aren't. And it can be awkward to go into a live setting where you just want to go introduce yourself to Craig and say, hey, you don't know me at all, but I want to waste your time right now. Whereas the group on LinkedIn, it's designed for that purpose. It's designed to draw us together for that purpose. And same thing, if you can, nothing beats pressing the flesh. I mean, so if you can find the actual in-person places that are designed to meet and to network, that's, because networking and mentoring are very closely related in my mind. So if you can find those places where you're expected to walk up to somebody, walk up to me and introduce yourself, and I'm expected to talk to you, that's a lot easier, a lot more comfortable. Than if you come crash the Santa Clara County Family Bar function, I'm going to wonder why you're there and what you're doing,
Well, and, and just to echo that, what Travis just said, you, by all means, I mean, this is just one strategy of networking and garnering relationships with potential mentors. I mean, you should be attending events where you can get that face-to-face interaction. I mean, people convey themselves so differently through an email or a message than they do, in person. And you could be one of those people that maybe you're just not coming across the way you want to sound in an email, and you'll wow someone in person. So just think of this as one tool in your, overall networking and creation of mentoring relationship strategies. So, yeah. I want you guys to feel free to ask questions as you think of them. I mean, if there's any questions right now, please feel free to ask. Let's just keep going. I want to ask you guys, what type of commitment do you feel as, even as an alum on the directory, that you can give to the students in terms of, just whether it's responding, whether it's taking someone out to lunch, and at what point, do you feel that you will be asked, too often for your time? Is there?
Yeah, no, I understand. There certainly would be a breaking point, and it's
Yeah.
not one that I've hit. I don't know if it's one that Craig has hit. But I think, I'll speak for myself. This is where I say networking and mentoring are so similar. To me, I'm supposed to be having lunch or cocktails with somebody probably 4 or 5 times a week. And if I want to keep relationships alive and I want to keep business coming in. And if one of those is a student instead, where it's more of a mentoring, mentor-mentee relationship, that's fine. Because in my mind, frankly, and I'll say this, because you guys will appreciate this a few years down the road, there's a selfish component to that too. I'm networking every time I'm talking to anybody. So even as a mentor, I'm trying to, Craig wants people to remember Craig when it comes to business and real estate. I want people to remember me when it comes to family law. So I guess to answer your question, meeting people in person is something that I could probably accommodate once a week or every other week before I started to feel like it was a breaking point. And email is hit or miss. I get 160 emails a day I've got to respond to. So.
I feel like that's one of the reservations that students have, is they're a little uncertain. Seeing a list of alums that they'd like to reach out to, but they might feel uncomfortable. Okay, have they already been tapped, dozens of times? I don't know if that's, do you just leave it to your discretion to monitor that?
I don't think you should ever worry about that. That's not your concern. Your concern is just reaching out and trying to develop that relationship. And then on our end, if we're too busy or we have too many, mentor relationships going, then hopefully we just let you know that. And if we're really superstars, we might be able to get you connected up with somebody else. But I don't think that you should ever be worried about that. Don't let that be the reason why you don't walk up to somebody or send an email or make a phone call.
How about attaching a resume to a message? Do you receive that well? Do you feel like it, even though there's not that direct question, I'm looking for a job, does it send the message that that's obviously implied?
I'm probably not going to open it.
Yeah.
It's probably a little too soon for that. Again, right, it's one thing if you're responding to a job opportunity or somebody has recommended, if I talk with you and you say you're looking for a family law associate position, and I had just talked to Travis the day before, and he said, hey, we're looking for somebody right out of law school. I might say, you should email Travis and attach your resume and tell him that you talked to me, and I recommended that you email him directly. Okay, so outside of that, I wouldn't be attaching your resume. I'd let things kind of grow a little more naturally, and you'll find out real quick whether the person that maybe you've initially approached for a mentor relationship might be actually a potential employer. You'll find that out real fast. And then you can maybe take it to the next level.
Can I drop in a comment that's really kind of an aside here, but while we're talking about getting a job, because I know that's a concern for everybody. I just want to plant a seed. I'm not making this a recommendation for probably most people, but don't be afraid to hang out your shingle. There's literally not a single person that I know that failed at that. I mean, not a bunch of people tried it, but in my class, everybody that just got out of school and hung out a shingle, they're still practicing and they're still in their own law practice. So, and you've done well. You had some bumps with the mediation practice, but you've been blazingly successful as you transition to straight private practice. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, just let that be a seed that's out there. It's a valid way to go, and you will get by.
Well, and if you choose to do that, really at any point in your career, which for a lot of lawyers, at some point you usually consider taking the leap if you don't actually take it. Mentor relationships or direct peer relationships, people who are also hanging out there on shingle, it's going to be critical to your ability to be the best lawyer that you can be, and will also be critical in your ability to develop business, which again, you hear nothing about that in law school, as you probably shouldn't. And depending on where you end up after law school, you may not hear or even see it or even think about it for years and years and years. But the business side of practicing law is pretty important, arguably, dare I say, more important than the actual practice. If you can't bring the business in, it doesn't matter if you're the greatest lawyer on the face of the earth.
Yeah, I completely. There's three things. I mean, pure and simple, there's three things you have to do to be in business for yourself as a lawyer. You have to get business, you have to practice competently, and you have to get paid. And, I mean, that last one should not be underestimated either, the difficulty of that sometimes. So two of those three things don't have anything to do with how good of a lawyer you are.
Oh yeah, the getting paid. I mean, that's something that working in a kind of a larger firm, you often don't get, you don't get exposure to the business side. And when I went to work for a small family law firm at one point in my career, I was talking to the clients, I was getting the retainers in place, I was asking for supplement, to supplement retainers. I mean, it was something that, after 5-6 years practicing in a firm, that I never even knew I knew it went on, but I didn't really understand it. So yeah, I think that's a really valuable piece. And shameless plug for our December solo practice program. Craig, actually, you attended it a couple years back prior to starting your own practice.
Oh yeah, actually I got great stuff out of it.
Well, and Craig will be showcased in that in December. We will be talking. So, Travis, you mentioned, these other types of strategies for networking and creating relationships, or getting those face-to-face meetings. What other strategies, in addition to, getting dialed into the mentor directory, attending certain events, mixers with alums that, the Alumni Association does have. I mean, we're going to be having one in October, and, it's typically at the Brit in downtown San Jose, and students are invited. We rarely get students attending. I mean, we get a small number of students attending. So, I mean, that's something that I think would be great for students to participate in. But what else can they put on their,
I'm going to answer that question kind of backwards. What you're trying, in my opinion, what you're trying to get to is to have as much reach as you can, where people are going to think of you first when they hear of a need, of a certain legal need. And so then the question is, how do you get those relationships out there, and how do you sustain those relationships? And there's there's a couple of viewpoints at least on that. I mean, I know people who just want as many people as humanly possible to be in possession of their card. And just if you flood the market, you'll get some hits. I like, because I like the clients better when they come in this way, I like to form and sustain relationships. So when I talk about having lunches and happy hour all the time, it's because at least quarterly, I've got to touch all of these people, and that pool is growing and growing and growing. And so the question is, and the reason for me that I value those relationships is those are the clients who come and say, so-and-so told me I need to hire you. They've got their checkbook out, as opposed to the tire kickers. So with that in mind, there's so many routes, but I mean, like I said, to me, face-to-face is still the most important, so that's what you're trying to get to. You will in your life already have people who work in other professionals, other areas. You need to be talking to those people that you hit it off with. I mean, from my standpoint, I talk a lot with people in the mental health field because they touch, my line of work very closely. CPAs do as well, real estate appraisers, and other attorneys, all your classmates. I mean, your friends now, don't let them become not your friends after you get out of law school, because they will be very important to you down the road. So you're going to find that professionals are the best referrers of business. Other attorneys and other, like I said, for me it's CPAs, appraisers, and mental health professionals. So those are the people that you want to meet. Well, how do you meet them? Some of them you'll meet because you used to work for an office, or some friend of yours in law school went to work over here and they'll take you along with them for lunch sometime. Others, there are professional networking groups. Jim Hoover, another partner at my firm, and I are both in groups that meet once a week for the sole purpose of networking. And really that networking, though, the sole purpose of that meeting is to get those face-to-face names and contacts, and then outside of that once a week to start to sit down with people. Because people are going to refer business to you when they trust you. And they're not going to trust you till they know you, and they're not going to know you by getting a business card.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. And once you do meet, Craig, maybe you can address this question. Once you do have a meeting, you have maybe you have an email interaction with, through your networking or, mentor directory interaction, you maybe meet someone at an event, you have a great conversation. What do you recommend in terms of follow-up? Because I think a lot of people feel like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know if I need to send another message, or how often do you recommend being in contact with that person?
Oh, say like after an initial meeting,
Yeah.
like say if everybody here goes to the next alumni event down at Brit, and you do connect with an alumni and have that great conversation, if you have the presence of mind when you're talking to them, that you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I didn't expect to make this great of a connection. I already know now that I would like to follow up. Before you're done with that initial conversation, you might want to ask, would it be okay if I followed up with you, sometime, and maybe we could get together for lunch or something and talk a little bit more. And if you don't have the presence of mind to do that, which is okay, sometimes you don't think about these things until later. I think you send an email, you make a phone call. Again, email is pretty easy, very comfortable for both the sender and the receiver. My only recommendation is I can't tell you how many times people have said this to me, and I can relate because I've been in this position where you think, gosh, I met that attorney 2 months ago, and something just happened to me last week, and they were talking about that, and I would love to connect with them, but they'll never remember me, or they're so busy, I don't want to intrude, all the things we've already talked about today. But if you just take the chance and you reach out there, no matter how it is, email or through the LinkedIn mentor directory, or just regular LinkedIn, or you can make a phone call, more often than not, it's probably going to go really smoothly and won't be like your worst nightmare of having somebody say, never heard of you. Who, what?
Well, and I see it, from the other side. I mean, there's no harm to you guys at all, because if I blow you off or am rude, I'm the asshole. I mean, I'm the guy who just put a bad taste in your mouth about who I am as an attorney, and you'll tell all your friends about how rude I was. So there's no risk. I do think email is probably the preferred way to do a follow-up, in my mind, a follow-up after a meeting, say, hey, let's get together. I would say email is your best bet. But,
yeah, that's good. So follow-up, that's kind of how often do you think would you recommend? You know,
Following up if they haven't heard back from me, or regular
yeah,
get together?
both, because I think both kind of happens, and
Yeah,
people don't know what to do.
There comes a point, obviously, where everybody has a gut sense of when, for whatever reason, this relationship is not going anywhere, and you just give up. I can't give you a perfect answer about that. But then, likewise, once you forge an important relationship of that kind, a few things can happen. I mean, there are people who I have such close relationship with that I don't have to meet with them quarterly.
Okay.
You know, I can see them a couple times a year because we know, we trust each other fully.
Right.
And you get a sense of those relationships over time. It's like your friends. I mean, it's like any relationship. That's all it is. That's all we're talking about, mentoring relationship or a networking relationship. There are other ones where you chat with this person, you don't know, if you're getting or they're getting everything out of it that each of you want. You need to follow up more regularly on those. You need to sit down until you have a sense of, do we connect? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to connect with everybody. There are personal dynamics. There are people you'll meet and you'll like them at an event, and then you'll get together for lunch, and you both will sit there and drum your fingers. And I mean, that's going to happen. That's going to happen with any relationship we have. So just trust your guts. It's nothing new. It's nothing more than relationships that you form throughout your life.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that at least from the mentor perspective, a lot of things are, come to events like this, shaking a lot of hands, having some initial conversations. Oftentimes I get a couple follow-ups after. It might just be a little simple email exchange. Maybe it grows into getting together for lunch or coffee. But I consider those kind of low level. Somebody just knows I'm out there and they ask a question that I know I can respond to, I will. But I do actually, I have a couple of active, what I definitely classify as active mentor relationships. I mean, it's not like on some special boards, but and I get together with those individuals on a quarterly basis, and we made that arrangement when we met for the first time, and we met specifically for the mentoring relationship. And one of them, Andrea, paired us up specifically for that purpose. And after that first meeting, again, just like Travis said, you kind of get, whether you're clicking, whether you want to get something from that person and they can give it to you. And we decided right then and there, okay, I'm prepared to mentor you, and let's meet quarterly. And we've done that. We've met 2 times. In fact, we've got our 3rd coming up here in the next month. So, it can be formal like that, or it could be more like, hey, when I have a question, I'll check in with you.
I would say this: when you're following up with someone you've met at an event or a mixer or something, and you wanted to do that first sit down, I would suggest coffee or cocktails as opposed to lunch, because if you're trying to avoid the potential awkwardness of it, lunch is an hour-long commitment, and I tell you, if you don't have lunch with someone that you don't know you're friendly with yet. I mean, if you had a good chat, do coffee or cocktails, because that first moment of awkward silence hits and both sides go, well, it was great to meet you and see you again, fantastic, and off you go.
Painful.
It is a little bit like dating.
Yeah, it can be awkward at times. Do you guys suggest that that the students, if they message you or email you or message you through LinkedIn, that they also connect with you on LinkedIn, like where you become a formal connection? Or at what point would you suggest that someone would do that with you?
I'm fairly indiscriminatory when it comes to LinkedIn connections. I think the more the merrier. It's not like your social networking. I mean, frankly,
It's not like
I'm
Facebook.
going to pretty much say yes to anybody who sends me a request to connect on LinkedIn. And I would hope that, I would say vice versa. I mean, definitely connect with everybody.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my only moment of hesitation is not that you shouldn't do it, but I don't think that it's all that critical per se. If you're really just looking to connect you want to reach out to an alumni, because LinkedIn has the vehicle to do that. If say like a year ago when the mentorship forum didn't exist, then I'd say, yeah, do what everybody does and send the invite and try to connect and go from there. Now that the forum does exist, or the directory does exist, I don't think it's as critical that you do the actual connect. And at some point down the line, you can always do that. But generally speaking, I totally agree with that. That's what LinkedIn is there for.
Right. I mean, while we're talking about LinkedIn, I actually just literally yesterday, in perfect preparation for this, I got an email through LinkedIn or whatever they call it, a message through LinkedIn from a classmate of mine, making me a referral, who I literally have not seen or spoken to since I left law school. So I mean, but hey, we're connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, I had almost the identical experience yesterday. It wasn't a referral, but somebody that I had connected with a few months ago, we got together for lunch yesterday. And I had referred a potential client right after I connected with them about 4 months ago. We've been trying to schedule lunch since then, and it actually happened yesterday. And I had not seen that person since law school.
Which was a long time ago.
It was.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Whenever you do get a message or a request to get connected with someone, do you guys, or do you think the other mentors also, they just kind of like respond to the message or connect, or do you take the time to like look at the person's profile and see if they interest you at all?
I take a second to look at it, but I'm looking for something that glaringly would suggest to me that this person is, not who they say they are, or is involved with some organization that they're coming at it for some ends other than trying to connect. So I take a cursory glance at their profile, but my default is I'm gonna respond and I'm gonna connect.
Well, if you're a Santa Clara law student or Santa Clara alums, I think chances are.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I guess it goes to etiquette, but as partners, if we're interested in, the work you're doing at your firm, and you have 4 partners or 2 partners, should we send it to all 4 or all 2, or is it, if I send it to just you, the other 3 partners hear about it and might be jealous, or are y'all annoyed that we send it to 4?
So if I, spoken with insider's knowledge. If an email went that the 4 partners that my firm got that came from you, the other 3 would be, 3 of them would send an email back to all the partners and say, who is this guy and why is he emailing us? And I'd be the only one who knows. So if you know how it is that pretty much, you shouldn't be sending a blind email that you've never met any of us. So I would say you should target the person or 1 or 2 people that you actually met or that you saw come to one of these things or whatever.
I would just piggyback on that and just say be relevant. If you met somebody somewhere and you're following up, that's a relevant email. But to send it to other partners, you may not necessarily know who you are, probably not relevant.
Any other questions?
I was just wondering how many, or if you guys have actually gotten any of these requests, because I've sent, I think, 2, maybe 3, and oddly, I think one was to you, Craig, and I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or whatever, but it seems like they're not getting them, or I'm not getting a response to that. So,
I'm purposefully
Yeah.
not responding to you. You know what? Well, let's talk after.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm here today, so we'll connect. But all I can say is I'm not sure. But we'll get to the bottom of
Yes.
that.
Yes.
In my observation, I think follow-through is still something that, I say you guys, not to mean you in this room, but just people in your station. Follow-up is something that still needs learned. I meet people when I come and talk and things like this, or at mixers or events, and I think, man, I had a great chat for 25 minutes with that student, never hear from them. So I do get them from time to time, and I always try to respond, and some of those have turned into a couple of coffees, and then it fizzles, But more often than not, I'm surprised, and I don't remember it for very long, but like 2 days later, I think, never heard back from that person. Would have thought I would have.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions directly with Travis and Craig before your next class. So thank you all for coming, and thank you to Craig and Travis
Thank
for
you.
your time. Great careers.